Snow had a way of quieting the world until even regret sounded like a prayer. That evening, it drifted sideways across the plains, thin and sharp as ground glass, blurring the road that led out of Red Willow and erasing the tracks of anyone foolish enough to be abroad after sundown. Clara May Hollis walked that road anyway, her boots stiff with cold, her shawl pulled tight around a body long accustomed to doing without. The sky was the color of old tin, and the sun had already slipped away, leaving the land to its own breath. Each step sounded too loud in the hush, as if the snow itself were listening. She noticed the shape before she understood it, a dark interruption in the white, low and unmoving, where the wind should have smoothed everything clean. At first she thought it was a fallen fence post, then a dead steer, then nothing she wished to name at all. Clara slowed, heart pressing against her ribs, the cold biting deeper as fear sharpened her senses. She told herself to keep walking. Red Willow was not kind to women who invited trouble, and winter was no season for mercy. Still, something in that stillness tugged at her, the way unfinished hymns linger in the chest. When she knelt, the snow soaked through her skirts at once. She brushed away ice with bare fingers and found a hand, blue-lipped and stiff, curled as if it had tried to hold onto the earth and failed. The man's breath came shallow, a ghost of warmth against her skin. Alive, then. Not gone yet. Clara closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of that fact settle on her shoulders like a yoke. She whispered a name she did not know, more promise than sound, and began the slow work of dragging him back toward the glow she could just make out in her memory, the single window of her cabin, waiting. Clara had learned early that the world did not stop for women like her. She lived on the edge of town, far enough to be forgotten, close enough to hear the murmurs when the wind carried voices from the saloon or the church steps. People spoke of her kindly enough when pressed, but kindness was often another word for dismissal. No husband, no kin worth mentioning. A woman alone was a curiosity in summer and a cautionary tale come winter. She bore it quietly, the way she bore the cold, by tightening her jaw and moving forward. The man was heavier than he looked, his coat soaked through, his boots frozen solid. Each step back toward the cabin cost her breath and balance. She slipped once, went down hard, the world ringing white and bright. For a heartbeat she considered leaving him there, the thought sharp with relief and shame. No one would blame her. Snow claimed what it pleased. But then his chest stuttered again beneath her hand, stubborn as a spark, and Clara found her feet. By the time she reached the cabin, her arms trembled and her vision swam. Inside, the fire had burned low, but it was enough. She wrestled him across the threshold and shut the door against the wind, sealing them into a pocket of warmth and uncertainty. The room smelled of pine smoke and dried herbs, the simple comforts she had learned to rely on. She worked without thinking, stripping wet cloth, rubbing life back into numb limbs, coaxing heat into skin that had forgotten it. His body told a story in scars and old injuries, each one a sentence she did not yet understand. Hours passed in a blur of tending and waiting. When his breath deepened in color, crept back into his face, Clara allowed herself to sit, exhaustion settling into her bones. She watched him then, truly looked. His hands were rough, marked by labor or violence or both. A faint line cut his brow, healed poorly, as if time itself had been in a hurry. Whatever had brought him to the snow had not been gentle. Morning came thin and pale. The storm eased, leaving the world wrapped in a fragile calm. Clara slept in snatches, waking to check his breathing, to feed the fire, to listen for sounds beyond the door. Red Willow woke as well, its eyes always quicker than its heart. Smoke from her chimney rose straight and steady, a signal no one missed. By midday, she felt the town's attention settle on her like frost. It came first in the form of Mabel Quinn, passing by on her way back from the well, her gaze lingering a beat too long on the cabin. Mabel had lost her husband years ago and gained opinions in his absence, sharp as vinegar. She said nothing, but nothing was needed. By evening, the whispers would be shaped enough to wound. The man stirred near dusk. His eyes opened, dark and wary, taking in the room with a caution that spoke of hard lessons learned. He tried to sit, failed, and lay back with a breath that was half a laugh, half a curse. Clara moved to him with water, her voice low and steady as she told him where he was. He drank, nodded once, and closed his eyes again, as if conserving more than strength. They spoke little in those first hours. Words felt too large for what passed between them. When he needed something, he gestured. When she offered food, he accepted with a quiet gratitude that did not ask for more. In the pauses, the fire spoke for them, and the cabin filled with a peace that felt borrowed. Outside, Red Willow leaned closer. A man had been seen near Clara's place. Sheriff Thomas Calder heard it over his supper, filed it away with the other concerns that winter brought. He had learned not to hurry judgments. Jonah Pike, wiping glasses at the saloon, frowned into the middle distance, a memory tugging at him he could not yet name. Night fell again, deeper this time. The man slept, his breathing even, the lines of pain softened by rest. Clara sat nearby, mending a tear in his coat, her needle flashing in the firelight. She wondered who he was, where he had been going, and why fate had dropped him into her path. The questions hovered, unanswered, like snowflakes suspended before the fall. When she finally rose to bank the fire, he opened his eyes once more. They met hers, held them, and something unspoken passed between them, an understanding that whatever lay ahead would not be simple. Outside, the wind began to rise again, and Clara felt, with a certainty that settled deep, that winter had only just begun. The man healed the way winter loosens its grip, slowly, almost resentfully, as if strength were something to be negotiated rather than taken back. Each morning he rose a little steadier. Each evening he sat a little closer to the fire, without shivering. Clara never asked his name. She learned him instead through habits. How he split wood with care, not force. How he rinsed his cup before setting it down. How he paused at the door each dawn, as if weighing whether to step back into the world. Gratitude lived in him, but so did something heavier, an old shame that pulled at his shoulders and bent his gaze away from mirrors. When he finally spoke more than a sentence, it was to ask what he owed her. Clara smiled at that, not unkindly, and told him she did not keep accounts for mercy. The words unsettled him. He had lived by ledgers and reckonings, by debts paid in blood or fear. Her refusal of balance made him careful, almost tender, as though one wrong move might break what little peace he had found. The town did not share her patience. Red Willow watched them with a hunger sharpened by boredom and cold. Clara felt it when she went for supplies, the way conversation paused a fraction too long, the way eyes slid toward her and away again. Mabel Quinn's mouth tightened into a line of moral concern that cut deeper than accusation. Someone asked lightly if she was in trouble. Someone else offered help she did not need. By the time she returned home, her basket full and her heart heavier, she knew the story had already begun telling itself without her consent. It ended the afternoon Jonah Pike came by under the excuse of checking a fence line. He saw the man in the yard, axe swinging, sunlight catching a face Jonah recognized despite the beard and the scars. Color drained from him, leaving something like awe behind. That night, the saloon hummed with a different pitch. Names were spoken into mugs. Elias Crow, some said, the outlaw who had vanished after a string of raids that left men poorer and graves fuller. Others shook their heads, unsure but eager. Fear does not need certainty to spread. Sheriff Calder came the next day, boots clean, eyes steady. He spoke to Elias alone first, his voice low, the law worn soft by years of watching people survive the best way they knew how. Elias did not deny his name. He did not justify it either. He stood with his hands open, as if the truth were weight enough. Calder listened, then nodded once, the sound of it final, but not cruel. When Calder spoke to Clara, it was with respect that surprised her. He told her what the town believed, and what he himself knew to be more complicated. He asked if she felt endangered. Clara looked past him to Elias, who was waiting by the door, ready to leave, without being asked. She thought of the night in the snow, of breath returned, of kindness given without promise. She said she did not feel afraid. She said the man she knew had split her wood and mended her roof, and never raised his voice. Calder accepted her answer, though it did not make his job easier. The cold sharpened after that. At church, Clara sat alone. At the store, Her coins were counted twice. Words followed her like burrs, small and persistent. She began to wonder if mercy was something the world punished, simply to discourage its use. Elias saw what it cost her and made his choice quietly. He packed before dawn, setting his few things by the door, his movements careful not to wake her. She found him there anyway, her sleep lighter than it had been. He told her he would go, that he would not be the reason she was cut off from the only place she had ever belonged. The words came out stiff, practiced. Clara listened, then surprised them both by stepping closer. She did not beg him to stay. She did not absolve him of his past. She only said that running had not saved him before, and it would not save her now. Whatever came, she would face it standing. They stood like that a long moment, the fire crackling low, the future pressing in. Outside, a small crowd gathered, drawn by rumor and courage borrowed from numbers. Sheriff Calder walked among them, his presence a thin line against violence. When Elias stepped out, he did so without defiance, his hands empty, his back straight. The town took him in with its eyes, searching for the monster they had been promised. What they saw was a man thinner than legend, quieter, worn down by something like regret. Calder placed him under arrest with a gentleness that surprised everyone. There was no spectacle, no shouted justice. As they walked, Calder spoke, his voice carrying just enough. He told them of a night years back when a wagon of children had been caught in a flood, and a wanted man had cut them free and vanished before thanks could find him. He did not say the name, but he did not have to. The story shifted, unsettled, looking for a new shape. Elias paused once, turning back to Clara. Snow began to fall again, light and uncertain. He did not promise to return. He only looked at her the way a man looks at a place he hopes to remember when the dark closes in. Clara held his gaze, her spine straight, her face open. She had lost nothing worth keeping. Winter eased its hold after that. Not all at once, but enough to notice. Clara went on as she always had, though something in her walked taller. The cabin felt quieter without Elias, but not empty. She had learned the weight of her own choosing, and it warmed her better than fire. If this story found you, perhaps it is because you know what it is to offer kindness without knowing the cost, or to receive it when you least believe you deserve it. Remember this then. Mercy is never wasted, even when the ending is uncertain. Sometimes it changes the world. Sometimes it simply keeps a soul alive long enough to change itself. And if you'd like to sit by this fire a little longer, listening to stories like this as the snow falls and the past loosens its grip, stay with us. Subscribe, and let's keep telling the quiet tales that remind us who we are.